Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. You crafters just keep crafting. So today we're going to hear about Yaupon Tea. How many of y'all knew you had tea sitting in your backyard, right? Yeah? All right, so it's one of the few caffeinated leaves in the United States.
It's the only one.
The only one. Oh, the only one. So I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about it. I'm going to let you listen to. All right. So let me let you have Michelle. Let her talk to you about Yaupon Tea.
All right. So today we're talking about Yaupon Tea, and there's no shortage of Yaupon in our county. So everybody surely has one of these. It's the America's Original Buzz. It's the only caffeinated leaf in North America. And if you're looking for an alternative to coffee, it's a really great alternative for many reasons, which we'll talk about today. Whoop. There we go. Just a disclaimer, this is a presentation that's meant for information, and anything that's discussed in here as far as medicinal qualities that comes with this, you should always consult a physician before trying any of those. So my beginning trying of Yaupon Tea happened when we bought the property, which now has been 11 years ago. And we had so much of it, and I was like, there's got to be something beneficial with this plant. And after a bunch of research, I learned that you could make tea with it. And I was a little skeptical because there's all these things out there about it being poisonous and causing all kinds of problems. And so I was a little bit nervous, but after trying my first batch, I really discovered how much I enjoyed it. And so I just began to experiment with it, and it kind of became a thing. And I started actually selling Yaupon Tea in Dallas for a few years when I was going back and forth and still lived in Dallas. Some of the reasons that this is such a great tea is it doesn't have any tannins like a lot of your other black teas and so forth have, which means it never gets bitter. So you can leave it in the water for a long time, and you don't have to worry about that tea bag turning your tea really bitter, which, we've all had, the black teas go bitter. It has a slightly sweet taste, not huge, but it's just slightly sweet. And so if you are not a big sugar fan, it won't turn you off. But if you don't like it's just smoother, I should say, than normal teas. It is also a wild harvest, which makes it very sustainable. It doesn't require any maintenance, as you can all attest. It grows very, very well in our area. And so this is a plant that you don't even have to think about, but it can be a productive plant for you to make some tea. It has a natural antioxidants and anti-inflammatories. It's rich in the antioxidants. It's mood boosting with the theobromine. It's anti-inflammatory properties, and it supports immune health. It actually aids in digestion. And because it is locally sourced, it's just very green, to say the least. Yaupon Tea is, Yaupon grows primarily in those states that are colored in green there. It's very prolific in those areas. A lot of people would call it invasive, and if you own a lot of property out here, you'd probably agree with that. But there are some real benefits to it as a plant. The birds get a lot of benefit from it. They enjoy the berries off of it. And as we talked about, it's a good barrier for like our chickens when they're out running around. But the Yaupon holly itself is actually a real gift. I'm sorry, what? Yes, goats will eat it as well. Yeah, my goats they'll eat it some. Every now and then they'll go on a Yaupon strike, but they do like it. The Native Americans were the first ones to cultivate and use Yaupon. They dried the Yaupon holly leaves and they smoked them and then used them in various teas. They also did what's called a black drink, which is used in ceremonial things that they did. Now, this is where the legend of Yaupon's original name came from, was a misconception about the black drink, because the black drink is actually a very, very thick brew of Yaupon, but it is brewed for an excessively long time until it's almost like a syrup. So it was really, really highly concentrated. And sometimes they would also throw in other roots like snake root and so forth in there. And in their ceremonies, the purpose of this was a cleansing ceremony, which meant their goal was to have you throw up. So they would drink this in excess until they did vomit. And so that kind of is what's behind the name of what this plant got named, unfortunately. But it was, and we'll get to that in just a second, but it was also introduced to the colonists as they came over, and they discovered that it was a great source of caffeine and it was a great tea to drink. And so it actually became very popular with the colonists when they came over. They began to export it to Europe. And this is kind of where things got out of control and got them in trouble. Because when they started exporting it to Europe, this botanist, William Eaton, he was actually the director of the Royal Botanical Gardens, was hearing from other people the stories that had gone on about the use of this with the Indian tribes. And he gave it the scientific name of, let me make sure I pronounce this right, Ilex vomitoris. So the name just screams you don't want to have anything to do with this. Now, there's a lot to be said that people really think that he was highly tied into the very popular European tea companies that were seeing this as a threat to their business. And so there's, we don't know, this was in the 1700s, so who knows what was behind his actual naming of it, but there is said that he may have been influenced by them in that to give it an unappealing name so that it would no longer be a threat to them. And it worked, because basically they banned it from being shipped over and no one wanted it. And so it kind of went dark. But it is recently starting to become more popular. And it is being re-embraced by those, particularly people who are looking for more sustainable ways to have products, particularly in America, and not having to export things from other countries. This is certainly fits that mold. But it is also, I don't know if you have ever researched the Yaupon tea businesses that are out there, but they have been quite a few that have sprung up over the years. And some of them have done a really good job of marketing and putting themselves out there. But these are just a few of the ones that you might see if you were to go look for Yaupon tea. And this one is recent. Let me get my pointer. This one here is a recent one. This is, let's see, which company is that? Oh, I don't have it in front of me, what company that is. But anyway, it's a real popular company that just started recently in the last year adding Yaupon into their teas. So anyway, and some of these are based not too far. There's one, the Yaupon Brothers, I believe, is in Austin. Lost Pines is near Austin as well. And so anyway, they're all in the region of Florida, Georgia, Texas. That's kind of the prominent areas where most of those are. But believe it or not, this market is growing, and it is estimated that by the year 2030, this will reach a $10 million market. So it's starting to really gain some popularity. It's driven by the wellness trends and sustainability. Now, granted, the tea market overall is 16 billion, so that's a drop in the bucket when you compare it to the other teas that are out there. But you know, it's nothing to just sneeze at. It's actually got a chance. So let's talk about Yaupon, and I am sure you all can identify Yaupon, but we will discuss some of those basic qualities. You have I'm going to get my pointer going here. You have the leaves, which you can see here. You have various formations of stems and the berries. Each of these things, let me pull over here. The leaf arrangements are alternate on the stem, so they don't sit across from each other. The leaf shape is simple, with a smooth elliptical shape. They're smooth, and I mean they're shiny, and they have rounded toothed edges. If you can kind of see the little bit of jaggedy edges, they're rounded. The foliage is glossy on top and lighter green on the bottom. The flower structures, when they have flowers in the spring, they're usually very inconspicuous and small. You can usually hear the bees before you can really see the flowers because it does attract the bees. The fruit is green and then turns red or white when it's fully ripe. And each one of the berries contains 4 seeds. So that was interesting. I've never cracked one open to see. The bark is smooth. The height of the Yaupon can vary, as you probably all can attest. It can get pretty good size. Around 25 feet is about its max. The branching pattern is kind of chaotic, and there's no real rhyme or reason to the branching pattern. So these are pictures of the berries. One of the things that's important to note when you're going to harvest Yaupon is to stay away from the ones that have the berries. Now, the female plants are the ones that produce the berries. They are male and female. And so you will have some Yaupon on your property that do not produce any berries at all, and those are the males. The females are the ones that produce the berries. Both female and male plants do produce flowers. In the spring, if you're going to go harvest, I always try to stay away. I try not to harvest when the flowers are on. You don't want the flowers or the berries mixed in with your tea. So it's best to try to go around that season to not hit the time frame when you're going to be conflicted with those. They say that female leaves have better flavor. I've never just distinguished male and female when I harvest, so I can't say. I just harvest. But the main thing is choosing really healthy leaves, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about, is knowing the difference between really, really good, healthy leaves. I brought some examples, actually, of what I call bad Yaupon and good Yaupon. When you go to harvest these, you want, well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back and let's talk about things that you don't want to get in first. So the Chinese privet is real similar in appearance. Now, I don't have any of this on my property, but you can tell that this is the Yaupon here, and this is the Chinese privet. And you can see the Chinese privet leaves are right across from each other, and it's a very, very symmetrical in looks. Yaupon here is, I heard it said, think it's chaotic, and chaos and caffeine go hand in hand. So there you go. So that's one way to look at it. Also, farkleberry is one that can be easily mistaken as a Yaupon, but it's not. If you look at the farkleberry, the leaves are smooth, entirely smooth, and the berries, when they're ripe, are purple. very different from the Yaupons. And so you can tell the difference when you're looking at those. I brought some samples of, let me talk about these first. You can pass the farkleberry. I brought a farkleberry sample around. I don't know how, sparkleberry is another name for it. I think it's also called huckleberry. It's got several names, but we just call it farkleberry. But anyway, so those are the ones you don't want to harvest when you're looking to get some good Yaupon. So when you go to harvest, my advice is try to do it after a really good rain, because it does help to wash just the dust and the debris off of your plants. I like to go out with my mesh basket here, and I will trim branches at a time. And so this is actually ones that I have already trimmed and they're dried. What I do is, for me, it's just easiest to take this. I will fill the basket up, and then after I've cut my branches of the best leaves and the best branches I can find, I will take it to my outdoor shower and I will hose the whole thing off, and then I shake it really, really good, and then I go stick it in my attic, and I leave it in my attic until I'm ready for the need to use them. And so I try to keep about 2 of these in my attic at all times, so I always have access to them. Because sure enough, it's about this time of year when I'm like, I'm out of my Yaupon, and I go out to look outside, and there's berries covering, all the trees. Well, this way I don't have to worry about it. They're already done. They say the ideal time to harvest is November. Now, you do have berries you have to work around, but I harvest at any point in time. One of the things that I find it's very beneficial when I started this is we picked an area, and I'm sure you've all done this, just come in and just like chop all the Yaupon off to about 2 foot high. Come back in 3 weeks and you will have the best Yaupon to cut because it just resprouts, and then you can come in and not have to hunt around. It's all fresh growth. It's good. And so it makes it really easy to just come in and harvest. And so that's one easy way to get some really good Yaupon leaves. One of the things that you can do now, some people like to take them off the leaves, off the branches when they cut them off the trees. I don't, because you don't want the leaves sticking together when they're drying. You want them to have good air circulation. And so for me, I have found this is a great solution for me. It keeps everybody from sticking to each other. They stay dry, nice. And when you get a good dry leaf that cracks really easily and crispy, you're good to go. And then you're ready to take your leaves off and go through the process of getting them ready for tea. And there's varying things out there as to how long it takes it to get to that point. So just because I wanted to know how dry these would get, I just came back from a trip to go see my granddaughter in Germany. And so before I left, I went out and cut some of these. So they've been in this bag now for about not quite 2 weeks. And I would say they're pretty close. So it doesn't take long. I never really, chalked it up to how much time, because I always just had a bag in my attic. But really 2 weeks is probably a good time frame. Now, I will say this. You can do a forced dry in your oven or in your dehydrator, but it's not recommended. For the best potential to keep all of the good components of the Yaupon, it's best to let it dry naturally. Just do it that way. So let's go back to when I harvest, I just cut the whole stem and I put it in here. Then you go to washing them, and you can do it in a sink. You can do it, like me, in an outdoor shower. They just need to be rinsed of any debris. And at that point, I will just check them out to make sure. Now, usually as I'm cutting, I really want to examine to make sure that I don't get what I would call bad leaves. I stuck some in here. Some of these have berries, but some of them, I stuck a couple in here because I felt like they were representations of not the best choices, that had a lot of bug things on them. They didn't, and the leaves were old. They were starting to curl. This was picked just before I came today. But you can see those leaves are starting to curl. And so that tells you those leaves are past their prime. They're really not something you want to use at that point. There's a lot of bug-ridden ones on there. And so this would not be a stick that I would choose. Also, I put in here, you don't want to get ones that are so fresh and green that the leaves are like really soft. And you know what I'm talking about, when they're brand new. You want them to have a little bit of rigidity to them before you pick them. So the newest sprouts are just not the most optimal either. So those are the reasons why these are in the bad Yaupon bag. Bad Yaupon. The good Yaupon has healthy looking leaves. They're not old, but they're not super new either. And so those would be the ones that I would say would be the optimal choice. Yes, young adults. Okay. Then when the leaves are totally dry, this is what they look like. They have kind of a brownish look to them. And hang on a second. I brought a tin because after I take them off of the stems, I put all my leaves into this because it's best to keep them in a completely sealed and no light and no air get to them. And so these tins, I save them whenever we get stuff at the holidays. It works great. And then just in case I forget whether or not they're roasted or not, I always label not roasted. So I know that these have not been roasted. Then my ones that I use, I pull from this one, and this is my one that has been roasted always. So, so you take the leaves, once you've picked them off of your stems and they're dried, you place them on a cookie sheet or a metal pan, and you put them in the oven. And your oven needs to be, well, let me say this. I do it at 350. I was reading, there are so many different opinions out there as to what temperature to do this at. Some people say 400. I think that's too hot. I have found that they will burn if you get too hot. And so I think 350 is a good temperature for me. And I do it for between 5 and 8 minutes. And I really go by the smell because they will burn really fast. And when they hit the burnt stage, it's like, not good. Yeah, not good. No, I don't.
Convection, they'd be going like this.
Yeah, you don't want air flowing around them too much. Yeah, that would send them all over the place. So, yeah, probably a good call. Yeah. Not for this. Now, if you had a solar setup where you could actually regulate the heat, but just drying in the sun, the problem with that is when you dry these naturally, you don't want them exposed to sun because the sun will zap them of some of the nutrients that you want left in them. But if you had a solar setup where you were actually using it like a solar oven, you could roast them in that. If you could control the temperature and watch them, then that would work. But just to lay them in the sun, I wouldn't recommend that. Sure. Yeah. They're not roasted. They're just dried at that point. Yeah. Right. You have to roast these in order to make the tea. Well, let me say this. Some people actually will take just the dried leaves. It makes a much lighter tea, almost in the green tea world. So if you like a really, really, really light tea, you might just not roast them, and then you can just make your tea straight from the dried leaves. I like the roasted flavor, and I've actually done what I've called the dark roast. And when you go in to look, if you ever go to order any of this, they will give you the option a lot of times of a dark roast. And it's more like an espresso coffee, intensity, if you like that, which means you'd roast it a little longer. You'd roast it for about 10 minutes. But again, you got to watch it because it will go from okay to burnt in like 2 seconds. So you have to really watch that. So Teresa's passing around a sample of this tea so that you can all taste it because, everybody's like, what does this taste like? So
How big is that right now?
one single layer. You do not want them all piled up. So I will do I'll just have rotating cookie sheets that I'll do in and out. And so it doesn't take long. And once your oven's heated up, you can throw them in and out of there pretty quick. So once they're roasted, this is what they look like. Now they're going to have a much darker texture and smell and look. And so now they're ready for you to put them into a tea form. Now, let me open this. Oh, yeah, see if you can open that. Sorry. That's okay. So these have a little stronger smell. If you were to smell the two of them side by side, you would smell the difference between the non-roasted and the roasted. And you would see this has more of a green tea smell. This has more of, not coffee, but you can tell it's roasted. It's a stronger smell. And it's a darker color. So what I do from this point, now you can take it from here and you can use it in a coffee grinder, but and I have a designated herb grinder that I use with my teas. But honestly, I find that it tends to pulverize it too much for this. And so I just have this big pitcher. And what I'll do is I'll just get a handful of these and I'll put it in here and I just use my hand and they just crumple really easily. The point is you want to get the surface area increased so that when you put your hot water on it, you can bring out more of the good properties. And so just takes a few minutes, scrunching it up, and then you have a product that's now ready to be used in the form of a tea. So no fancy tools needed. So then that's not a very good picture, but from here you can put it into various forms. You've got the tea ball diffusers. I use just like a regular diffuser that goes into your cup. You can even use just a small strainer that sets in your cup with your leaves inside of it. I also have this, which you can drop into a big pitcher if you want to do a lot. But there's just lots of ways. There's also tea bags. You can get these drawstring tea bags, put your tea into it, and then you have your tea. And then some people do it in a coffee press. I usually just do, a tea bag full at a time. You can reuse them, yes. One of the things I will say is the tea bags, I usually, I made this yesterday, and then I took that tea bag, and then instead of putting it in hot water, I just put it in another mason jar filled with water, tap water, and basically just left it on the counter. And in another day or so, I will have another full pot, another full pitcher that I can use. And it stores really well. You can put it in the refrigerator. You can keep it on the counter for a day or two. But, it's one of those things that I find it a great flavor to mix with other things. And so this is a summary of kind of what I've talked through, how to harvest. And then this is a blend this blend is my favorite. I make this and keep it on hand all the time because it's hot, cold. I mean, it's great hot or cold. And so you can mix this together, and your Yaupon is your base. So it's the biggest portion of your ingredients. And then the other things are just your additional flavors that you add into it.
What is the medicinal properties?
What is the
Medicinal properties?
medicinal properties? we talked about that. It's got antioxidant, it's anti-inflammatory, it's actually got more antioxidants than green tea or blueberries. And so, yeah, it's really great for inflammation. There was a while there that I was dealing with some inflammation, and so I drank it every day and really saw a decrease of my inflammation when I was having that issue. So, I mean, it really does make a difference. I'm sorry, what was your...
How much of the kind of tea leaf do you actually use like a
Yeah, about a teaspoon. You know, for this size here, I had this size tea bag that I put my tea in, and I probably filled it half full. So that was probably 2.5 tablespoons. So this is a normal size tea bag. And so you would fill the normal size tea bag half full to a full, depending on if you wanted to use it multiple times. But literally you can take this and reuse it, like I said, at least 2 or 3 times after making your initial cup of tea, because it does stay strong.
This up in advance. Make it together, or do you do that individually?
Well, I have found that the nutmeg and cinnamon falls to the bottom really easy if you mix up a huge portion of this. So what I'll do is mix up smaller portions, and then I just stir it really good before I then dip into it to make a small cup. But in the past, what I've done is just done individual tea bags, mix them up as I go, and that way I can add the 2 little spices, the cinnamon and the nutmeg, and the cardamom. I can add that into the tea bag directly. And if you've seen those little teaspoon sets that says a smidge, that's what I do. Literally, it's just a smidge. Those little tiny little pinches of those, and so that would go into each tea bag. I do, but you can also buy dehydrated orange peel too. But yeah, I'll periodically just dehydrate a whole bunch and then chop it up and save it. So, and the cloves, I have found the whole cloves do really much better than the ground cloves. And they're usually fresher. The ground cloves can be a little on the older side and can get bitter. You have to watch that. So, but you're welcome to come up and look at this and smell these and kind of, see what you think. Had you guys tasted it? What do you think?
very good.
Was it how many of you have never tasted Yaupon tea before? Okay, so there's several of you that haven't. What do you think of it? You think it's okay? Yeah, it's surprising, when you think that this grows in your backyard, and it makes a really great, I always told my husband, okay, if coffee is no longer available, 2020 put you into a whole new thinking of things. I was like, my Yaupon is my source of caffeine every morning. So I would not go without that. So, any other questions?